Hey, it's Patrick Carelci.
And I'm Adriana Cortez, and welcome to Red Pilled America's Famboogie.
How's the Red Pilled America Fan Bam doing? I had a great weekend. Our Dodgers won the World Series, and then this week, all hell breaks loose across America. You got a commie being elected in New York City. You have a attorney general in Virginia who had a huge scandal saying that he wanted to basically kill the supporters of MAGA's kids. I mean, there's all this nutty things going on out there. You have California voting in some redistricting thing. We're going to get to all that, all this madness, and try to give you guys our take on all the craziness that happened across America this week.
This is an emergency episode of Famboogie coming to you live today. We decided to put a pin in our Scott Adams episode and do this episode for you because we've been getting so many messages, so many DMs, so many emails, people wanting our take on what's happened with this mini blue wave.
Exactly. So be sure to check out redpilledamerica.com if you want to become a Fan Bam member. We're having a 7th anniversary special for a limited time. We're giving a half price on an annual subscription for the entry level tier. So go over to redpilledamerica.com, click join in the top menu, and take advantage of this opportunity. Also be sure to check out Adriana Jade over on Instagram. It's her fashion blog and all things 50 plus influencer kind of thing. She's got a really good thing going over there, so check that out. And once again, keep an eye out for our Scott Adams episode. We're going to be releasing that soon, part 3. Let's get right into it with this mini blue wave that just happened with Mamdani out in New York City. My first time I went to New York was in 1993, I think it was, 1994. And I'll remember that time frame. I'm not sure how many of you guys were adults at around that time, but going to New York City was a scary proposition in the early 90s. A lot of crime. I remember the first day I was there, I saw somebody walking over by the Empire State Building. It was a woman carrying a purse. Somebody ran right by her, grabbed her purse, and took off running. And I remember going on the subway at that time and just feeling very afraid. And I was a young, 24-year-old man, shouldn't have felt afraid, and I felt afraid. Fast forward to around the 2003 time frame, and I hadn't gone back to New York, I think maybe a handful of times, maybe 2 or 3 times in that time frame. Things slowly started to get better. And then I'd say the early 2000s, it was right after 9/11. Things in New York had changed. I felt safer when I went there. I could go to Washington Square Park and not feel like I was going to be attacked. And we were going to New York, I want to say it was like, over the course of 10 years, we probably had been there like 50 to 75 times. Just a ton of times. It felt like it was like our second home. Constantly there for kind of work stuff. And fast forward to then, we take a 10-year break. We weren't going to New York for about 10 years or so. And we went back there a couple years ago, and the city had gone back to what I had first experienced in the early 90s, mid-90s, the first time I had been there. The whole city smelled like marijuana. We went to Times Square because we wanted to go to some Broadway shows, and I felt completely unsafe. This was right during the middle of the day. We'd get stared at by some kind of like sketchy looking people. I got my wife and child with me, and I don't have any weapons with me because I'm no longer in California. And so I got my wife there, and I just felt unsafe. And this city has taken just a complete nosedive back to the mid-90s, I would say. Enter, Mamdani comes around, and he's a Democrat Socialist, a proud Democrat Socialist, and he enters this mayoral race against Cuomo, and then there's one of the candidates is from the Guardian Angels, one of those, I think his name is Silva or something like that. Anyways, people kind of didn't think Mamdani was going to win this thing, and had these kind of big billionaires come forward and say, this guy has to be beaten, and he's a Ugandan citizen, immigrant, young man. I think he was born...
He's 31 years old.
Okay, so very young.
He was born in Uganda, and then when he was 5, he immigrated to South Africa, and then when he was 7, they came to the United States.
And his parents are pretty kind of, have been described as jihadis, anti-American, but he's very well-spoken and very charismatic, and kind of the guy that will go to like the clubs and be standing with the DJ and feel comfortable there. Well, here he is, ends up winning this New York election and this New York mayor election, and it wasn't even really close. Even if the guardian angel guy would have dropped out of the race and given all of his votes to Cuomo, he still would have won. He won a majority of the votes. Of course, Cuomo was possibly the worst candidate you could put up against him after what he did during the COVID time frame. He basically put sick COVID people into nursing homes, and thousands and thousands of people died in that fashion. He shut down the entire economy at some point. He just left everybody kind of in a very bad position, and then wouldn't reopen things back up. So you have the worst kind of formulation of candidates against this Mamdani guy, and sure enough, he wins. Here is part of his victory speech on election night.
Thank you to those so often forgotten by the politics of our city who made this movement their own. I speak of Yemeni bodega owners and Mexican abuelas, Senegalese taxi drivers and Uzbek nurses, Trinidadian line cooks and Ethiopian aunties. Yes, aunties.
So he goes through this entire list of people that he's thanking, and of course he doesn't mention Americans. It's all of these kind of, refugee groups and these immigrant groups, and that is how he sees New York now. He says that he is unapologetically a Democrat Socialist. How he won was basically promising New Yorkers that he was going to freeze the rents. Rent there is astronomically high, and he's saying he's going to freeze, X amount of people's rents. He also ran with this idea of having these grocery stores that are free, I guess, giving out free food and what have you. But kind of your garden variety socialist ideas. And I think a lot of people are freaking out because they're like, wait a minute, this socialist has been elected into the media capital and financial capital of the United States and, by extension, the world. And what does that mean for America? There is some cause for concern, but there's also some context that I think that needs to be put into play. I want to play a couple clips here because these are some people that there's some man on the streets videos. People have gone out there into the streets and asked people who they voted for and why they voted for this person. And I want to play you guys a couple clips of those interactions. And these are Mamdani voters, and they're explaining why they voted for Mamdani.
Guys, can I ask you how you feel about Zohran winning?
I'm happy about it.
Why are you happy about it?
I don't know. I don't.
I don't really know. I just do.
Really?
Yeah, because I keep seeing all the cute TikToks of him partying and clubbing, and honestly, he's one for the people,
That's why you support him?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. And there you have it, folks.
No, I mean, I hope that he can get some of the things done that he's saying he's going to do.
Like what?
Well, he wants to help people with their rent. He wants to help people with transportation costs.
Who's going to pay for that?
I have no idea. I don't know.
Well, look at this. This is your booth, right?
All right, enough.
The person has a bunch of Mamdani booth stuff that she's selling, both magnets and T-shirts and hats and that kind of thing.
Look at this. You're out here selling Zohran merch, and you don't even know what he wants to do.
I just said a couple of things that he wants to do.
But you have no idea how it will be implemented.
I know he has ideas about it.
He has concepts of a plan, right? What's your favorite Zohran policy?
Probably making education more reliable and more equitable.
How do we do that?
I don't know.
How do you feel about Zohran Mamdani winning?
Oh, I feel fucking amazing about it. It's such a win.
Why?
Because we need people like him in office and someone who's under the age of 79.
What's your favorite Zohran policy?
I have no idea. I'm not from New York.
So that gives you the gist of his questioning. He walked up to person after person after person, almost 100% female, and asked them, do you like this Mamdani character? Did you vote for him? What do you like about him? They all loved him. Pretty young, I would say. I would say in most cases, you're talking about women that are, I would say, anywhere from 22 to maybe 31, 32, something along those lines. But then when he asked them, okay, what policies do you like? Almost to a T, they can't name a single policy. So what that tells me is they're into his charisma. They're into the character of this Mamdani guy, not necessarily him being a socialist, not him necessarily buying into socialism as an ideology. But ultimately, these people, a lot of them seem like they're college bound. Some of them talked about this issue with college and the cost of college and education. They've been learning about socialism at these colleges, and it's been normalized for them for decades. It's been normalized for them via Hollywood. It's been normalized for them when they see these Che Guevara T-shirts that we've been seeing now for decades. It's been normalized by the Democrat Party for decades. And in essence, in many ways, we kind of live already in a quasi-socialist government. I mean, when you look at all these benefits that people are getting, whether it be, health insurance getting covered partially, whether it be, the scale of taxation, the way that you have all these welfare programs that are out there, these SNAP programs, free insurance for certain people, then you start going up the age bracket and you start having other kind of benefits that could be easily categorized as socialist benefits. We are already kind of in that environment. So these people in New York, they're looking at their situation. They're looking at the cost of living. They're looking at the cost of food, inflation. They're looking at their student debt. They're looking at the cost of colleges. And they're saying, you know what? Why not go for this guy? Why not vote for this Democrat socialist, and let's see where this goes? Of course, they don't know anything about the history of it. They're not comparing socialist governments across time and in various other countries and how it's almost always failed. They're not looking at any of that. They're looking at their pocketbook. They're looking at their own situation. And at the end of the day, they're like, well, how much worse can it be? And so they're looking at this Mamdani guy who's promising them the world. He's promising them free transportation. He's promising them to freeze their rent, which I think I heard, the last I heard was something along the lines of $4,800 was the average rent cost there, which is crazy in New York. They're hearing that. They're hearing about these free grocery stores, and they're like, okay, let's give this guy a try.
Yeah, I mean, I have a friend whose kid went to NYU last semester, or not last semester, last year, and now they're looking for an apartment, and they found an apartment, and it's $10,000 a month, and it's tiny. And who can afford that? Of
course. And so if you have a man that comes along who's hip, who's going to the clubs and hanging out with the DJ, who changes his accent wherever he goes to kind of fit in with the crowd. He's amongst immigrants in New York, which is saturated with immigrants. I mean, it's been that way now for decades. They've been, more and more immigrants have been coming into New York City. That's the case for any of these kind of major urban areas. You're, of course, going to have people that are going to be drawn to that charisma. And so what are the Republicans doing to this, to respond to this? How are they countering this? We'll get to that right after the break. You're listening to Red Pilled America's Famboogie. Join the Fam Bam. Get half off for a limited time at redpilledamerica.com. Click Join in the top menu and enter discount code RPA7. We're talking about this little mini blue wave that swept through parts of America. Now, I've seen two approaches to thinking about this whole mini blue wave. One is that you got New York. There's not going to be a Republican that's going to get voted into the mayoral position in New York anytime soon. You had California, which the Prop 50 passed, which allows the governor, Newsom, to redistrict certain areas, which basically erases Republican representation in some of those districts.
And it passed overwhelmingly.
Yes, it did. The funny thing is, though, is when you ask people if they wanted a nonpartisan redistricting of these areas, they agreed with that. But what they're getting is the opposite of that. You know, and Virginia is not necessarily a deep red spot. I think it's kind of purplish-y, but leans more blue. And you had a Democrat governor win there, and there were some other elections, I believe, in Georgia and what have you, that were also kind of somewhat in some red areas. So, you know, it is a little bit concerning and kind of gives you a little bit of a litmus test of what's going on right now. There was some bright spots in that only a liberal progressive, ended up winning and defeating a communist out in Minneapolis. Jacob Frey won for the mayor in Minneapolis. That was the guy that you saw crying at George Floyd's casket. He was that mayor. He ended up beating a Sudanese, I believe it is, citizen, Omar Fattah. So there was at least some of, a couple bright spots.
That's the bright spot?
That's the bright spot out there.
Oh my gosh. I thought we were not doing doom and gloom
I know,
today.
right? But the fascinating thing about this whole thing that I saw is that 84% of Gen Z women from 18 to 29 voted for this Zohran Mamdani guy. 84% of Gen Z women. And the fascinating thing about it is at the same time you have women, and these are videos that I've been seeing now for the last couple of years, where you have these women who just randomly get punched in the face by a New York homeless person. I want to play a clip for that for you.
You guys, I was literally just walking, and a man came up and punched me in the face. Oh my God, it hurts so bad. Out of nowhere, this man just came up and hit me in the face.
I literally just got punched by some man on the sidewalk. He goes, sorry, and then punches me.
Oh my actual God, I literally just got punched in the face by a homeless man. Like, I just got punched in the face on the subway.
So, I mean, it's like...
And they all voted for Mamdani, by the way.
Probably.
Yeah.
But then, here you have Mamdani speaking about violence, and he calls it an artificial construct.
Oftentimes, we've even found as legislators, when we go into these courts, the term violent crime is even used when people are stealing packages. Violent crime is even used when people are accused of burglary and there happens to be a housing unit in that same dwelling. So violence is an artificial construction. And we have to be very clear that what is happening here with these district attorneys, that is violence. That is violence of the highest degree.
So he wants to empty out the prisons, of course. New York is
a shithole.
It's a shithole, and they have no idea what's coming.
No.
This guy wasn't even alive in the early 90s when this place went to shit.
He doesn't even know.
He has no idea what he's unleashing there. And he's going to be sanitized from it. He's going to be completely surrounded by a hermetically sealed circle bubble that he's not going to be affected by any of this stuff. It's going to be like
Escape from New York all over again.
It's going to be Escape from New York all over again.
I mean, I'll tell you guys what. We are currently in the process of applying to colleges for our daughter. And after she went to New York with us, she said she does not want to apply to any schools in New York City.
Yeah, and we were strongly considering NYU, and we went there, and we're like, how do you allow your daughter to come into this environment? At some point, they're going to have to, jump on a subway because you can't take taxis everywhere and Ubers everywhere. Sometimes they're hard to get on a taxi or an Uber at any given time. So, and you need to get
culture.
Somewhere.
Yeah,
exactly. So, I don't know how anyone could send their daughter there.
Listen, I agree with that, but luckily we didn't have to make that decision because our kid's got a great head on her shoulders, and she made that decision for herself.
Yeah, 100%.
She immediately was like, ugh. And
the thing that I've also found that was fascinating about this is that this Mamdani guy appears to be kind of a Trojan horse. You have now, a lot of these Muslim women and Muslim leaders coming forward and feeling empowered by this election. And you have them speaking out boldly now, explaining their plan on how they're going to create a Muslim president. And here is one example of some Muslim leaders talking about this.
Let's work towards a Muslim mayor. Next election that comes in, nominate people for the school board of education. Next election that comes here, nominate people for the local township. It became the demographics change. People converted. There's a huge conversion going on in this country. But where are the converts? They just convert and they're gone in the wilderness. The other thing, children. Muslims have the highest population. Average, Pew Foundation did a research study, Pew Foundation, and they said that Muslim household average is 3.4 child per family. The white American has 1 child per family.
So he's basically making the argument that, Muslims have more kids than American-born, legacy Americans. And so let's just do this slowly. We don't need to necessarily take over this country via force or through war. We're going to take it over via demographics.
It's a numbers game.
It's a numbers game.
And they're beating the Americans.
So how did this happen? Like, how did this kind of environment get set up? I mean, obviously, one of the premises of this show is the culture. And we have allowed these anti-American forces to infiltrate American institutions for decades. They came in to the education system. They started bringing these ideas in through the education system. They went into Hollywood. They took over the unions. They took over the Screen Actors Guild. They took over the the Writers Guild. They start producing these stories that are anti-American, these pro-immigrant stories that all cultures are the same, all cultures are equal, that in fact, actually, foreign cultures are better than America. America is an empire building. They destroy everything that they touch. They paint the Muslim community as victims. After September 11th, Adriana, me and you were together on September 11th when the towers got hit.
Yeah.
Could you imagine that about 2 decades later, 24 years later, that the city would have a Muslim mayor after what we saw there?
You would have told me that on 9/11, I would have said, you are a liar. That will never, ever happen in New York City. It will never happen.
It's shocking that it has moved to that. So
people are desperate.
That's what it's coming down to. So you allow the country to be flooded by countries that have a different view of the world, that have a completely different culture, that don't want to assimilate, that will never assimilate into the American experience, that will not pledge allegiance to the United States flag and have that be their sole allegiance. You allow the United States to be flooded. You then hit them with this propaganda, whether it be through media, through the news, through storytelling, through films, through books, through TV shows, and you create this environment where you walk through New York and you're asking all of these mostly white women, young white women, how they feel about Zandani or Mamdani. I keep getting his name wrong.
You keep saying Zandani.
Yes, Mamdani. And they're like, oh, he's so cute, and oh, he's at the DJ booth, and he's so cool, and it just creates this incredible environment. And at the end of the day, the same policies that made New York a shithole ends up being able to take over and now create more of those policies and put those policies on steroids. I'll never forget in 2008 when we had the financial crisis, and you had the Bush administration that was in office, and the entire Wall Street starts to implode. And you have Obama kind of enter the scene saying that he's going to fix this thing. And it's the Republicans that screwed everything up. It's completely crashing because of the Republicans. Then in the aftermath of it all, you start to do a little bit of research and you learn, wait a minute, actually, it was the Democrats that passed certain legislation that allowed this kind of situation to happen. It was actually Obama and his cohorts that were going to the banks and pressuring the banks to give these poor quality loans or give these loans to people that had poor credit. And basically infested the financial infrastructure with all of these bad loans. And now, based on the policies that he pushed, he's now going to take over and be the savior and fix a problem that they created. And that's what we're seeing happening here in New York. But here's the problem. Trump came in January. So much of his time and energy has been spent on foreign issues and not the United States. The conservative media has been completely consumed with Ukraine and Israel and with the Middle East, but mostly Israel. And that is like what right now the entire right-wing media is fighting over. At the same time, you have Trump coming forward just recently and saying that the American economy is the best in the world.
And I'm pleased to report that today the United States has the strongest economy, the strongest borders, the strongest military, the strongest friendships, and the strongest spirit of any nation anywhere. We have the greatest economy right now. A lot of people don't see that. But if you look at what's happening with all the factories, AI, auto plants all over the country being built, that if you would have thought about that 2 or 3 years ago, you would have said it was the opposite. They were all leaving. Now they're all coming in. They're all coming back and then some. And I think that we can honestly say, and I think you're going to see it even more so over the next 12 months, that this is the golden age of America. This is the golden age.
So I think people hear that and they then look at their own lives and they say, okay, if this is the golden age, then what are the dark times going to look like? And they will look towards people and ideologies like this Mamdani guy to try to fix things. Because I don't know about you guys, but when I look at the economy right now, I see all the telltale signs of a recession coming. I see it in the way that corporations are spending their money right now. I see it in prices. I see it in the way ticket sales to certain kinds of events. Look at Las Vegas. Las Vegas is constantly, the news is coming out that it's kind of a desolate area, that there's a ton of hotels are empty. That's usually a bad sign for the economy. So you can't have a president stand up there in front of the microphone and say that the economy is doing well when it's not. Housing prices have not come down. Living expenses have not come down. Inflation, everybody still feels it. Go out to dinner and try having a glass of wine with some friends and see how much that dinner is going to cost. It is very expensive. Cars are incredibly expensive. By the way, there's a lot of loans that are going bad in the car loan space. So the economy is not doing as well as Trump is putting out there into the world. And then on top of that, he is spending an inordinate amount of time on the Israel issue. And the conservative media is spending all of its time discussing this foreign land. And this is the other problem that I'm seeing. Once Trump got elected, it was like the conservative movement and Republicans completely disengaged from politics. Mm-hmm. They basically see their president. Their president won. He had one of the greatest comebacks of all time. He made these promises about kind of tackling woke culture, and I think we've all have seen the woke culture kind of marginalized to a certain degree. It hasn't gone away, but it has marginalized. He talked about cutting back on or stopping illegal immigration coming in, building a wall, deporting illegal aliens, deporting criminals. So I think people saw this man get elected in this kind of improbable election, and they just completely disengaged. They said, oh, okay, Trump's in there, and everything is fine. And they kind of walked away from politics and haven't been putting his feet to the fire, haven't been kind of forcing him to focus on America first issues as opposed to putting so much time and energy into the Middle East. You have all of these podcast bros, whether it be Joe Rogan or Andrew Schultz or Theo Vaughn, who were kind of this big coalition behind Trump that are starting to now distance themselves from him. Some of the reasons are, I think, faulty. It has to do with maybe the deportations that they don't like or what have you. But all in all,
that's my favorite. Get my cousin Martin.
But all in all, I think what you're seeing happen is this kind of disengagement because he has spent so much time on the Middle East, and we have this issue here now where, for whatever reason, all of the energy The entire energy of the conservative movement is around that issue. And I thought Asmongold, he's a huge streamer on YouTube. I check him out every once in a while. He's kind of one of these kind of interesting guys that plays clips and has reactions to it, but he's very successful at it. Has over 1 million views for every one of his videos. He's a Texan, and he was seeing his governor, Greg Abbott, and he was at some event, and he's looking at the frame of the event. What he notices is like 5 or 6 different Israel symbols and one American flag. And this was his response to this site.
And this is the thing to me, right? I see this and I think to myself, why the fuck would I vote for this retard? Why would I vote for this guy? And this is, by the way, this is my governor right here, Greg Abbott. Why would I vote for this fucking retard whenever you have 2 Israeli flags, 3 Israeli flags, 3 things I stand with Israel, and only 1 American flag? I'm sorry, guys, but that's just not for me. That's not for me. I'm an American. I'm a Texan. These should be Texas flags. That should stay the same. And this should say I stand with, I don't know, ICE, the police, firefighters, first responders, something like that. Anything except for Israel, right?
So this is a guy that I would not call your standard political conservative, but his beliefs definitely fall in that space. And it was guys like this who were speaking up Trump during the 2024 election that helped push Trump across the finish line. Huge crowd, huge young audience. What he's seeing now is these groypers, these followers of Nick Fuentes, as being kind of like the energy behind the conservative movement right now that is kind of pushing for America First policies. And one of his chatters on his YouTube chat asked him about the groypers, and this is what he had to say.
Groypers are taking power? Well, I don't think that necessarily not wanting to have 6 reminders inside of one frame that your country is being occupied by another country is not being a groyper. That's being an American. This isn't Nick Fuentes. This is common sense. There are 2 factions inside of right-wing politics right now. There are America First conservatives, and there are international traditional, neocon Israel, like lobbyist people, right? Like there are 2 groups of people here, and the infighting is why they're losing. They're losing because they're infighting. The reality, though, is that again, the Israel issue is the Republican trans issue. I think 80%, a huge amount of voters are demoralized, completely fucking demoralized by the fact that they have politicians playing like kowtowing and playing patty cake with Israel constantly. It's a massive thing. And the more that you play into that and the more that you try to oh no, this is normal, this is fine, that's the problem.
So there you have it. There's a guy who is not kind of really involved in politics, who is more of a streamer that kind of deals with more pop culture kind of a thing, but then got into the whole Trump wave in 2024. And he's seeing this issue, and he's seeing his own governor spending more time worrying about this foreign land than his own state and his own country.
Well, here's the thing. It just feels like common sense, right? But then if you say anything about it, then you're called an anti-Semite. And that is the problem.
Yeah, and there's no anti-Ukrainite or something. No. When we talk about this with Ukraine, at the end of the day, it's taking up too much time. And what's going to end up happening is people are going to look at this administration and say, if you're going to spend all your time on that, and you're not going to be focusing on American first issues and our own issues, on our student debt, on our jobs, on our loans, on the cost of home housing, on the cost of rent, on the cost of health insurance, which has skyrocketed over the course of the last year because subsidies went away. If you're not going to focus on crime in our cities, if you're not going to focus on homelessness, then we're going to give this Democrat Socialist a try.
Yeah.
And we're going to see what he can do with this. But let me be clear, I don't think this is something to be afraid of. We've seen this experiment before in NYC. They did this with Mayor Dinkins in the late 80s, and what came of that was the 90s crime wave in New York City. And that led the way for a guy like Mayor Giuliani to take over there. Our system is also set up to protect us from guys like this. He can never be president. He wasn't born in the United States. he will be a political force moving forward. You will see him campaigning with other Democrat politicians in other areas because he is very charismatic. He appeals to the immigrant class. He's kind of like the opposite of Trump. He is left-wing populism to Trump's populism. That's what we have to understand, is that the more time that Trump spends on a foreign land and on foreign policy in Israel and in Ukraine and in these kind of foreign escapades, the more people are going to turn to someone like a Mamdani for left-wing populism. We're going to either get left-wing populism or right-wing populism because that is what the people are craving right now. They want to focus on the economy. It's like what James Carville said in the 1990s. It's the economy, stupid.
Stay focused. Talk about things that matter to people. You know? It's the economy, stupid. Okay?
That's what he said during the Bill Clinton campaign to win the White House. It won him the White House. These people are not buying into his ideology, into this Mamdani's ideology. They are buying into desperation, or they are giving in to desperation, and they are looking for answers that will fix their current situation. And all they're hearing is about a land thousands of miles away in the Middle East. But this Mamdani guy, he is going to be an epic failure. And in many ways, it might be a good experiment and it might be coming at just the right time. Because we have the midterms next year. This guy is going to come into office. He's promised the moon to these people. I think he's promised 2 million rents to be frozen. He's sounding a lot like Obama. Here he is on his victory speech, and listen to how many times he says hope, just like Obama.
There are many who thought this day would never come, who feared that we would be condemned only to a future of less, with every election consigning us simply to more of the same. And there are others who see politics today as too cruel for the flame of hope to still burn. New York, we have answered those fears. Tonight we have spoken in a clear voice. Hope is alive. Hope is a decision that tens of thousands of New Yorkers made day after day. Volunteer shift after volunteer shift, despite attack ad after attack ad. More than 1 million of us stood in our churches, in gymnasiums, in community centers, as we filled in the ledger of democracy. And while we cast our ballots alone, we chose hope together. Hope over tyranny. Hope over big money and small ideas. Hope over despair. We won because New Yorkers allowed themselves to hope that the impossible could be made possible. And we won because we insisted that no longer would politics be something that is done to us. Now it is something that we do.
So this guy's going to come in. He's built up all of this hope. He's promised everything to these people: free transportation, free grocery stores. He's freezing their rent, and he's not going to be able to deliver on these things. His victory speech is going to sound asinine, and so there's going to be a reaction to that. So in many ways, what is happening right now with this guy might be a gift to Trump. As long as Trump and this administration begins to focus on American issues, domestic issues, pocketbook issues, because it is the economy, stupid. You need to focus on that. He had donors that he needed to kind of satisfy because their money is what helped him get into office. But in order for the Republican Party to have any viability into the future and to win in the midterms and to win in 2028, they need to deal with these pocketbook issues. So, I think that's kind of the situation that we're in right now. And I think that is why you're not having necessarily people buy in to Democrat socialism. They're not necessarily buying into the ideology. But what they're trying to buy into is change, because they're desperate and they need a fix. and they're not seeing this happening from this administration right now. All they're seeing is this push to support Israel and this kind of struggle sessions that they're having right now to kind of force people to announce their support of Israel and what have you. And I can understand how that is an important issue to many Americans and to Jewish Americans, but it's not the only issue. But it sure seems like the only issue that we're talking about right now, at least within conservative media. And I want to make some points on that in part two, because there has been this struggle for the heart of the conservative movement that we've been talking about. And I want to get into that a little bit more in part two. So join us on over there. You're listening to Red Pilled America's Famboogie, part two of this episode. So I want to get back into this fight for the heart of the right. We spoke about this last time we talked to you guys from Famboogie, and it's been escalating. So you guys might remember last week, I think it was, we spoke about Tucker Carlson interviewing Nick Fuentes.
Yep.
And Nick Fuentes is this kind of this right-wing figure. I don't want to go into too much about his background. We spoke about it last Famboogie, so you can go back and listen to it then, and if you need a background on the guy. But he's this character that was kind of pushed to the fringes very early, and when he was still in college, got in a little bit of a early tussle with Ben Shapiro and some of the Daily Wire guys, and he started asking questions about Israel and America's support for Israel. He was also kind of, I think, being groomed as potentially one of those campus college debater guys. And when he started asking those questions, he got pushed to the fringe and kind of lived in that space, I would say, for a good 8-9 years or so, but slowly started coming out and just recently has had this big rise in social media on the right. So now, then last week, Tucker Carlson interviews him. Conservative media goes bonkers over the interview. It was definitely a softball interview. There could have been some hard questions in there, and Tucker let him get away with some things. From there, you had the Heritage Foundation, which I believe is the foundation that gave Tucker his beginning. And it's a conservative think tank. I think it's been around since the 70s.
Yeah, we talked about that last week as well a little bit.
Exactly. Well, the president of the Heritage Foundation comes forward and basically gives a speech in a video that has been interpreted, I think rightfully so, as a defense of Tucker and their relationship with Tucker. And he got pretty much attacked by not only the Ben Shapiros and the kind of Mark Levins of the world, but internally he had some issues. And so he had some, I believe they had a Jewish task force internally within the Heritage Foundation that was kind of fighting to kind of fight against anti-Semitism.
Is there also a Catholic task force there?
I don't think so, but I believe that there are some Catholics internally there as well too. So there's this task force, kind of giving him guidance or giving the foundation guidance on how to deal with this anti-Semitism, this spread of anti-Semitism. Mm-hmm. We've spoke about it, and we've addressed that on our show as well too. We've done multiple series on this topic on how we can reduce anti-Semitism, and in our opinion, one of the things is to stop doing these kinds of censorship laws and things that will kind of make it look like there is a preferred treatment of one ethnic group or religious group over others. They had their own task force within the Heritage Foundation. Well, they started applying pressure to this president of the Heritage Foundation. And so he started to have internal meetings within the Heritage Foundation. And some of the meetings leaked to the public. And it got into, some of the media organizations started covering these leaks.
I like where this is going. Give me the leaks.
And so they had another internal kind of a town hall kind of a thing. Not town hall, I shouldn't say. A kind of an all hands on deck meeting. And they're addressing these leaks. And as well as this president, his name is Kevin Roberts, came forward and said that he made some mistakes in the video and that it was written by, I believe, his chief of staff and that he thought that it had gotten approved through the various channels within the organization, and kind of put the blame on this guy. But he's ended up saying the buck stops with me, and I should have, reviewed this and looked into it a little bit better. But that guy ends up resigning from the Heritage Foundation. So, and then he has
Kevin Roberts?
Not Kevin Roberts, the guy that wrote that helped write the speech that he put on video in defense of Tucker Carlson.
Wow. So somebody lost their job over that.
So someone lost their job, and his job was in question. There's been some, people within the Heritage Foundation that have told him that he needs to resign, that he handled this poorly, that he...
And now we're talking about Kevin Roberts, the president.
Yes. That he basically has he's amplifying anti-Semitism by standing behind Tucker Carlson, who interviewed this, quote-unquote anti-Semite. So this leak happens. Well, so then they have this all-hands-on-deck meeting, and that leaks.
That leaks as well?
The whole video leaks. I want to play a couple segments of it.
I love me a good scandal. Give it to me.
There's some interesting parts of this that I want to play for you guys. First, I want to talk about this, the leaks and how they were addressing the leaks. And I think this is actually kind of interesting because they basically said that they were hoping the person that leaked would step up and admit that they leaked.
Don't do that, person.
And if they won't do that, that they won't do it again. And then we are watching this video because somebody actually did it again. Here's some of the representatives, some of the executives at the Heritage Foundation talking about these leaks.
Yesterday, one of my former bosses died, Dick Cheney. I know he's not in vogue. I know he's not popular. He's a good man. One thing that he used to say is, I got this job because I didn't talk about my last job. In other words, he understood the value of giving confidential advice to your boss. And we've got to have that here. We've got to have that culture of openness that Kevin was just talking about. I'll be upset, but maybe not surprised if this meeting leaks. And you just have to know that factors into everything we do here. And so I would ask those who are leaking to do the honorable thing. And if they don't feel like they can be on this team, they need to resign. And I don't say that gleefully in any way whatsoever. I ask if you were that leaker to admit to it. If you're not able to do that, to never do it again. And if we're able to move forward together as a team, I think we'll be much, much stronger.
And
it leaks.
And it leaks.
And the person that spoke next said, if you do leak and we find out that you leaked, you're fired.
Duh.
So
I think they know that.
Yes. Well, apparently people aren't very afraid of the leaking game. So this is his apology. Now, this is the president. His name is Kevin Roberts, and he talks about the video that he did for Tucker Carlson and apologizes for the video. I should start this off to say that in the video he used the term venomous coalition, and I believe some of the Jewish people within the organization, I believe they claimed that was kind of a historically anti-Semitic phrase, is venomous coalition. So he is apologizing about that phrase.
Term venomous coalition, a terrible choice of words, especially for our Jewish colleagues and friends who understand that, given history, to be a trope used against them. And I very sincerely, very, very sincerely apologize to you in particular and to all of you for using that. It was not my intention to use a trope. I should have been better, so I hope you understand that. But I have to be better at being aware of those things.
So there you have it. He's apologizing to the Jewish community for saying a phrase that he did not know had some kind of historical significance. I did not know that venomous coalition had a historical connotation as well. I think there's a lot of phrases, what I've been noticing, when you hear. I remember that struggle session that Candace Owens had with that rabbi. I cannot remember what his name was. But there was like phrase after phrase after phrase that had some kind of historical anti-Semitic connection, which I was unaware of.
You know what? There's a couple of phrases that you've been using that I think are anti-women.
Okay, which would that be?
Don't buy that. And I think it's really offensive when you say that, so don't do that. Please.
Well, then I am a anti-woman then. And I'm going to remain that way. Yes, super misogynist. So apparently this task force within the Heritage Foundation had suggested that perhaps the that some of the members of the Heritage Foundation could go to Shabbat dinners. Shabbat dinners, I believe, have some religious connotation. I believe Shabbat is from Friday to Saturday night, and it has some Jewish connotation. And
all my Jewish friends have Shabbat dinner every week with their families.
And so they suggested that the Heritage Foundation staff come and attend some of these Shabbat dinners. And at this event, one of the Catholic members of the Heritage Foundation came forward and said that he was concerned by that because he was concerned that they were going to be using attendance of these Shabbat dinners as a litmus test, and that his religious beliefs would prohibit him from being involved or participating in the religious rituals of another religion. Mm-hmm. So he stepped forward to address that concern, and this was the response. I should say his name is Evan Myers, and he works within the Heritage Foundation, and he's Catholic.
And this is part of the leaked video, by the way.
Exactly.
This is leaked information that we're playing you.
We're playing leaked info.
Thank you, Mike. That's a hard act to follow. Thought you did a really good job, and I just want to say I'm grateful for all of our colleagues who are speaking up today, and especially for our colleagues on the National Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism. I'm especially grateful for their work. I also have a question about it, given some of the leaks that occurred yesterday. Right now, the National Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism is demanding that Heritage host Shabbat dinners with Heritage interns and junior staff. The faith of many Christians here at Heritage, myself included, would prevent us from attending these dinners in good conscience. As you know, for many Christians, Friday is a special day of prayer and abstinence to commemorate the death of Christ. I assume that no staff will be required to attend the Shabbat dinners, but my concern is that these dinners will serve as a sort of informal litmus test, and I'm worried that they will hurt many Christians who are not anti-Semitic but don't feel comfortable attending a Shabbat dinner. I would like to know how you guys would respond to that concern and how we can be sure that the dinners won't be used that way when the people requesting them or someone has already been leaking them to the media.
Evan Myers, you're fired.
Thanks, Evan. The recommendations, and that was the word, there was no demand was made. That is a gross mischaracterization of what was issued by the co-chairs of the Anti-Semitism Task Force yesterday, of which I am one. And I take some offense to that characterization. This was a recommendation, one of 6 recommendations that the co-chairs came to in consultation with the task force to try to provide Dr. Roberts with a path forward. As I said, they were recommendations. They came out of the conversation, which we were grateful to have with you on this topic. And one of the offers was if any Heritage staff would like to participate in this kind of a dinner as an educational exercise, not as a betrayal of their faith, that was an open offer from the task force. It was made in generosity of spirit and in the hopes of increased dialogue on this issue. And Evan, I'm deeply sorry that you could not see that as a generous offer, but rather a personal attack on you. It was not.
Here's a box. Please put your things in it.
Totally. Didn't that sound like a little bit like she was...
She's offended.
Oh, she's a tiny bit offended.
She's offended.
She's a tiny bit offended. I wonder if she would be okay if we maybe, I don't know, threw some holy water on her or, baptized her.
Evan Myers, you're busted. No.
If you look at this Kevin...
Okay, basically,
Kevin Roberts.
When Evan Myers stands up and he starts to ask the question, Kevin Roberts, the president
of
Heritage Foundation, the one that made the initial video about Tucker, he looks over at the guy that's sitting next to him like, oh shit, here we go. He's screwed.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's coming in every direction to that guy.
And you're seeing it's a struggle session that's happening right now. There's a struggle for power within these conservative foundations, whether it be the Heritage Foundation. This all goes back to Charlie Kirk's assassination. When Charlie Kirk was assassinated, he was the bridge between the Christian and the Christian and Jewish community. Not the only one, but definitely the one between the youth. He was that youth connection. He gets killed, and now you have TPUSA. Where is it going to go? Which position is it going to take? Right before his assassination, he was expressing some frustration with his Jewish donors. He was concerned that they were not policing their own community in regards to some of the money that was flowing into these far-left groups that were pro-open borders and pro-progressive ideology and pro-trans and what have you, and he was saying, hey, you guys need to police your own community and stop kind of, making me deplatform people that I don't want to deplatform, or at least making those kinds of demands. He gets killed, I believe, by the people that the FBI believe that he was killed by, which was a trans, a gay guy that was dating a trans person, Tyler Robinson. But he dies. Now there's this vacuum. Where's TPUSA going to go? And so there's this struggle within the conservative movement. Where is this going to go? And there is this rising, incredibly energized group of young people that want to disengage from Israel, which is represented by the Groypers. Their leader is this Nick Fuentes guy. And now, Heritage has to respond. And so now you have a conflict there as well. I'm telling you, what I'm seeing right now is a big, big problem. Here's what I'm seeing. The attacks on Tucker right now look very familiar to the 2015, 2016 attacks on Donald Trump. It's the same cohorts. It's a never kind of Trump groups, plus some other Jewish conservatives that were pro-Trump have joined into this group. They are attacking Tucker because they feel like he is now becoming kind of anti-Israel. He's becoming anti-interventionist, although I think he's been anti-interventionist for quite some time. They believe that he's anti-Semitic. They believe that he's platforming anti-Semites. They believe that he's amplifying these people's messages. This group is attacking Tucker the same way that they attacked Trump. The difference is, though, the group back then in 2015, 2016, they were concerned that Trump was going to be anti-Israel. They didn't like his anti-neocon positions. They didn't like his positions against Bush and the interventions in the Middle East and the interventions with Iraq and WMDs, and remember how he famously came up on the debate stage and said there were no weapons of mass destruction, and they knew there were no weapons of mass destruction. Well, the Never Trump kind of movement was born out of that debate. The coalition was Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, John Podert, and that entire kind of conservative Jewish faction of the conservative movement. And this is the same kind of group that is going after Tucker right now. The problem is that there is no reconciliation in the future with these two factions. There will be no reconciliation. Trump eventually came to the side of the Jewish conservatives and appeased them in his approach with Israel. His daughter is Jewish.
By marriage.
She converted. But he came to their side. What I'm seeing now with Tucker, with kind of the Candace faction, with Dave Smith, with this Nick Fuentes, that coalition, that group of people, the glue that binds them together is this desire to disengage from Israel. They will not ever come to the side that is now this kind of Never Trump faction that's attacking them. That group that once came together after Trump was elected will not come together now because these factions, there's a dividing line. There's one group on this side, on the pro-Israel side, that is, I think, arguably Israel is their defining issue that they cannot leave. And then you have this other group that sees this relationship with Israel and the money flowing to it and the involvement in their wars in that region is problematic for America, that it is taking our eye off the ball with our problems here in the United States, and they won't ever come back together.
Listen, I'm ethnically Jewish, and I think all of the listeners know that I'm ethnically Jewish. I was raised Catholic, but nevertheless, I'm an America First conservative. When I look at the Heritage Foundation, their purpose is to, and I'm paraphrasing here, promote conservative values that are based on traditional American values, not on, are you Jewish or are you not Jewish? I have a problem with that. It's very simple. That doesn't make me an anti-Semite. And I think that this is a growing concern for a lot of people on the right. And when you voice that concern and you're called an anti-Semite, you know what it does? It creates more anti-Semitism.
Well, what I'm seeing right now is the same thing that happened in 2009 when I left the Democrat Party and came to the right. I remember back then in 2008, 2009, and how the Obama campaign used accusations of racism on anything that anytime you questioned various programs, various government programs, crime statistics, having to fight crime statistics, being against affirmative action, being against a lot of these policies that are actually hurting the black community. Anytime you questioned those policies, you were called a racist. I remember the poster that went around of Obama that was a socialist poster. It had him painted as the Joker, and underneath it said socialism. And that went viral. It was pasted around, of all places, Hollywood, around my neighborhood. And I remember the media immediately called it racist. No, it wasn't a racist thing. Actually, I believe it was an Indian person that ended up creating the graphic. But it was a social commentary on Obama and the policies that he was trying to implement very early on, whether it
Dot or feather?
It was a dot.
Okay.
Indian dot. So I look at that.
I'm just wondering.
Yes.
I'm just wondering.
Got you. I look at that time frame and how the Obama administration was using these accusations of racism. I'm seeing the same thing from the conservative Jewish coalition on the right.
That's exactly what it's like. That is a great analogy.
And,
it's exactly what it's like.
Well, the thing that I'm seeing now, this fissure that I'm seeing happening between the Jewish faction and let's call it the Tucker Carlson faction of the right over this issue and him platforming anti-Semites. I think the Jewish group within our conservative movement is missing something here, and I want to get to that right after the break.
Life can be pretty stressful these days. You want to know what makes me feel better? Licorice from the Licorice Guy. Call me crazy, but it's true because I love licorice. Longtime listeners of Red Pilled America know that licorice is my absolute favorite candy. And the very best licorice, hands down, comes from the Licorice Guy. I know licorice, and it doesn't get any better than this. What truly sets it apart is its flavor and its freshness. The softness of this licorice will blow your mind. I've never had anything like it. The Licorice Guy offers jumbo gourmet licorice in nostalgic seasonal flavors like red, blue raspberry, cinnamon, watermelon, black, and apple. Trust me, they're all delicious. What I also love about the Licorice Guy is that it's an American family-owned business. And you all know that I'm a big proponent of supporting American companies. Right now, Red Pilled America listeners get 15% off when you enter RPA15 at checkout. Visit licoriceguy.com and enter RPA15 at checkout. That's licoriceguy.com. They ship daily. Treat yourself and those you love and taste the difference.
You're listening to Red Pilled America's Famboogie. Go and join the Fam Bam at redpilledamerica.com. We have a special going on where you get half price on a membership for an annual membership. It's going to limited time, so make it happen. Support what you love or it goes away, guys. So this fissure that's happening, it's this closest thing to like a major conflict within the conservative movement that I've seen in a while. And it seems irreconcilable. And I once again, I want to make a plea to my Jewish friends because I feel for their concern with a guy like Nick Fuentes. I don't like the guy. I don't like his approach. I think that he is bombastic for bombastic reasons. I understand why that happened, though, as well. He was pushed to the fringes very early on when he had some, I believe, legitimate questions in regards to our support of Israel financially and sending our men over there. I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. A friend of mine, one of my closest friends, killed himself after serving in a Middle East war. These men go out there. They deal with this war. They see people die. They see death in a way that damages their brains. They come back here and they end up either with PTSD or, like my friend David, killing himself. And so it's a big issue for a lot of us. A lot of people want to disengage purely because they don't want our boys to die. But this fissure that I see happening between these two sides, They're concerned about Nick Fuentes because they claim that he is a self-proclaimed Nazi, okay? And you could definitely pull out some clips and find him saying those kinds of things. This is where I think people are missing the point. He was thrown to the fringes, as I explained in the last Famboogie, and had to deal and survive in like the 4chan world, which is basically this kind of fringy kind of online communities where they say some very colorful things. One, to kick normies out so they can kind of have their own conversations. And two, it's just this is the main reason why I see a lot of these people using these kinds of Nazi references and these kinds of Hitler references. And we've been seeing this even in another scandal, which we didn't talk about a couple weeks ago, which is this Young Republicans group in New York. They also had some leaked chats that went out there. And in those leaked chats, it was put out by Politico, thousands of pages, I believe, of chat conversations within this Young Republicans group. People were making Hitler and Nazi jokes. I think what's happening is these young people, they don't care about their grandparents' villains. They don't want people to use the Holocaust or to use Nazism or to use Hitler as some kind of a way to shut them up. So what they're doing is, and I've actually seen this Nick Fuentes guy talk about this, he says that he says these things because he's trying to basically take it away as a weapon. The same way maybe like the black community has used the N-word with the hard R as kind of a greeting between each other to kind of take away the venom of those statements. And I think that is what these guys are doing. I think that they're using these terms as like, oh, okay, you're going to call me anti-Semitic? Oh, okay, boom, about Hitler. This is how I see these people using these terms. They're saying, fuck your villains, fuck my grandparents' villains. I don't have anything to do with that villain. The United States actually saved the Jewish community. During World War II, my grandparents actually did that. And so why are you placing that ancestral pain on me? That's what I'm seeing with these people. So I think that is how, why this guy, Nick Fuentes, is trying to do it. He's trying to remove the venom of that and just get to the topic, okay? So now we're going to wipe all that stuff clean. You want to call me a Nazi? You want to call me an anti-Semite? Okay, fine. That's what I am. Now let's have this conversation about the topics that is important to me. And I think that is where my Jewish friends are missing the point on this. They can throw up all these kind of character attacks. I'm seeing it online. I'm seeing how people are responding to it. They don't care about those character attacks. But they are so tired of the Israel issue. They are so tired of it. All they want, it appears to me, they want to provide for their families. They want to be able to buy a house. They want to have kids. They want to have a family that they can provide for, and they can pass on some legacy and wealth to their children. And those issues are not being addressed because we're constantly talking about this issue and about a land that's thousands and thousands of miles away, as opposed to the homeless person that they have to step over to go to work every day. So that's where I'm kind of seeing this happen. And I watched this video of Ben Shapiro where he was basically going at Tucker for platforming Nick Fuentes.
Hey, folks, I want to do something different on today's show. We're going to cover one topic in depth. That topic is, I think, the most important thing happening in the country. It was a hot topic last week, but I wanted to take some time to really gather my thoughts and speak on it in coherent fashion, holistic fashion. That topic is the fragmentation of the political right. That fragmentation is being caused purposefully by a splinter faction of people led by a young man named Nick Fuentes. They call themselves the Groypers. They are white supremacists. They hate women, Jews, Hindus, many types of Christians, brown people of a wide variety of backgrounds, blacks, America's foreign policy, and America's Constitution. They admire Hitler and Stalin. And that splinter faction is now being facilitated and normalized within the mainstream Republican Party. The main agent in that normalization is Tucker Carlson, who is an intellectual coward, a dishonest interlocutor, and a terrible friend.
I think that it missed the point. It was all character attacks. It was not dealing with any of the substantive points that Nick was making within the podcast. It was purely pulling up the worst clips of Nick Fuentes over the past years, the past 5-10 years, and using that to paint him a certain way. And you're not going to win the fight that way. You might be able to hold on to some of these conservative think tanks, but those conservative think tanks are also going to lose influence because they are not hearing the America First issues here that people are so concerned about. And I think at the end of the day, I think this is a major, major problem within the conservative movement because it's irreconcilable. The Jewish conservatives and this group of, let's say, groypers will not come together, ever. And what is that going to mean electorally? Well, I think we just saw something happen in New York, and we saw something happen in Virginia, and we saw something happen in Georgia and various other places, is you are seeing, perfect example, Mamdani, who is a Muslim immigrant, who is aligned with some anti-Israel and anti-Jewish communities, won a majority in New York, and now he has control of the media and financial center of the world. So I'm not sure how this fissure or how this fracture is going to play out, but I don't think the best way to fight the Nick Fuenteses of the world is to constantly pull up these old clips of theirs and try to paint them a certain way, because this isn't the 1970s where you had the old days of William F. Buckley and the gatekeeping that happened at that time. And I think the conservatives right now think that they are still dealing within that time. And I actually know that. The leaked video that came out from the Heritage Foundation, one of the members of the Heritage Foundation actually spoke about how they were able to gatekeep at that time. Here he is speaking about that. This man's name is Robert Rector.
And I want to start by going back to the origins of this institution, the origins of conservatism, with William F. Buckley, someone who almost none of you have ever met him. I hope you know who he was, because he founded the conservative movement in the United States. And I want to go back to his basic principle. When he set up the conservative movement in the early 1960s, and he said, you have to put boundaries around this movement. Okay, but back then it was the John Birch Society, basically. But there were not one principle, but two. The boundaries, because if you don't have boundaries on who you regard inside the movement will destroy itself, and it will create a PR nightmare for everybody in it. And the boundaries that he set forth, William Buckley, in early 1960s, were twofold. You have to expunge all anti-Semitism, all of it. But that's just part of it, from the conservative movement. The other is you have to expel the lunatics.
I don't think that that's wrong either, what he's saying there. But it's the definition of anti-Semitism where I think people start to argue over. Mm-hmm. And we should kick out the lunatics. I don't want Ian Carroll anywhere near me or anywhere near the movement that I want to be associated with. He's a conspiracy theorist. He's a liar. He puts out these crazy wacko conspiracies into the ether with no factual. He doesn't even look into the facts of his conspiracy theories. So I think that in principle, what he's saying makes sense. But it comes down to, if you're going to put up guardrails and you're going to gatekeep, but you're going to call anybody that disagrees with America's foreign policy, let's say with Israel, if you're going to call that anti-Semitic, that's a problem. Okay, we're talking about definitions here. He went on.
Okay, the lunatics who think that Eisenhower was a communist. Okay, and a whole bunch of, and we have them back now. Okay, they are both here back just the way they were in 1959. And we have to go back and set the general parameters. You say, oh, we don't cancel. We do cancel. Did we cancel David Duke? Yes. Did we cancel the John Birch Society? Yes. Okay? Because they were harmful. Because if they're in your movement, you look like clowns. Okay? And the issue here is Tucker Carlson. And I think, Mr. President, you don't understand the post-Fox Tucker Carlson.
Okay, so you get the picture. He wants to cancel Tucker. He wants Tucker out of the conservative movement. And I think what the mistake he's making there, and I think the mistake that some of these guys that are trying to take hold of this Heritage Foundation is that we aren't living in the 70s. We aren't living in the 90s. We aren't living in the 2000s to where you could cancel people the same way. They tried to cancel Nick Fuentes. They tried to do that for 9 years. They threw him into the fringes. They deplatformed him off of everything. He just got bigger. I would say now, he is in the top, I want to say 5 of conservative commentators in regards to viewership. Tucker, Candace, and Nick Fuentes, and then you have a couple of Fox personalities, perhaps maybe a Megyn Kelly and a Glenn Beck and those kinds of people. He is in that conversation as far as viewership goes. He goes onto a show on YouTube. That show will get 1 million views. He'll get interviewed by Tucker Carlson, and he will have as many views as, or get close to as many views as presidents of nations. Okay? That is not something that you can cancel anymore. You need to deal with it and argue with it and beat it in the marketplace of ideas. And this is where the conservative movement is going wrong. And this is where the Heritage Foundation, and I could see it in this guy, this president's face. He's starting to acquiesce to this. He's starting to fold on this. And it's going to be the death knell of the Heritage Foundation if they decide to take this route and they decide to not deal with this problem head on and not deal with these arguments head on. It is going to be a problem, and I think electorally, we're going to get, if this continues to go in this direction, it is going to be an annihilation in the midterms, and we're going to start to see Trump, go through impeachments again and potentially perp walked again if it tends to go this route. I mean, the youth are animated about this Israel issue. Listen to this TPUSA event, listen to the questioner, and then listen to the audience's reaction to that question when the questioner asks Eric Trump and his wife something about Israel.
Mr. Trump and Ms. Trump, I'd like to ask about your father's relationship with Israel. He's taken over $230 million from pro-Israel groups. During the summer against Iran, even though he advised against it, Israel still attacked Iran, and the U.S. still bombed on behalf of Israel. Your father's frustrations with Netanyahu have been made clear when he cursed on national TV over the situation. Israel has not been a great ally to the U.S. all the way since 1960 when they bombed the USS Liberty. Israel is a nation where Christians are constantly under attack in both Gaza and the West Bank. We talk about America first and defending Christians, but how can we do this if we align ourselves with a nation that does not do that itself?
I mean, listen to that applause. It's a major problem, and I don't know where this goes, but I would suggest, as we have suggested time and time again on this, is don't move towards censorship. Move towards arguing with these people. Beat them in the marketplace of ideas. You do it every day with the left. You need to do it within this group on the right. You are not going to be able to cancel them the same way that you were able to cancel the John Birch Society back in the 70s. You're not going to be able to cancel them the same way that you were able to cancel Pat Buchanan. This is not the ecosystem that we're in right now. They will continue to get stronger, and you will continue to feed the conspiracy theories that gave those movements, that gave the Nick Fuentes and the Graper movement wind in their sails if you move towards censorship. That's it for this installation of Famboogie. Keep an eye out for the next Scott Adams Part 3, The Internet Dad, coming out soon. Go to redpilledamerica.com, click Join at the top menu, and if you want to get 50% off, we have a short while for that to happen off an annual membership. Go to redpilledamerica.com, click Join in the top menu, and enter discount code RPA7. It's our 7-year anniversary, guys. We need you guys' support. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Bye, everyone.